Hello, and thank you for joining us for our fourth live premiere event here at Storytellers. My name is Heidi Olson. I'm the director here at Storytellers, and with me today, I have some of the cast and crew behind Asana. Hopefully, you guys got a chance to watch that just a little bit. Hey, here we go. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves. So, Chris, let's start with you.
All right, let me unmute. Hi, I am Chris Cloud, creator, director, writer, editor, etc. I started this thing, and me and Ben got it going.
Cool. And then Ben?
Yeah, so I'm just add co to whatever he said. I helped with the writing. I helped with the acting. I helped with the producing. I'm a writer, really doing sci-fi fantasy type stuff. So I mostly am working on that, but I like doing scripts. And when Chris told me about this, I thought it was a exciting opportunity. So it's been a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And then Stacy?
There we go. Hey, so I'm Stacey Bradshaw, and I played Asana.
Cool. So to get us started off here, can you guys kind of give us an idea, like where did this whole concept for this sci-fi fantasy type of thing come
from? Well, I could start. So I normally done some comedies, 2 comedies here that I did previously, and I just moved to Virginia and I wanted to make something, but my wife got pregnant. So she's like, all right, I'm not going to write. I'm just going to be pregnant. So I was like, okay, well, I don't have to do comedy then because she's kind of my comedy co-writer. So I had just met Ben, became friends, and he was all into sci-fi and everything. I'm like, ooh, let's do something sci-fi together. So we kind of just, long story short, started writing something. And then I was like, well, I'm about to have my first kid, so let me not do a full length. Let me do something shorter. So we went with that, and but we wanted to just be really original. We wanted it to be really deep, unique, and build a whole world or universe, which eventually, as we kept writing, we realized could be just a whole series. So we wrote the big world, and then we created one tiny episode out of that world.
Awesome. Ben, anything to add to that?
No, not really. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just getting together with Chris, like almost nightly, writing, rewriting, rewriting.
Oh, here's a funny thing. So Ben writes books and I write screenplays. So as we're writing together, he's like, "Ooh, let's have a rain scene right here," and I'm like, "How are we supposed to do that?" So what do you mean? Like, we're making a movie. We're not just gonna write what we want. And he's like, "Oh, so no car chases, no explosions." Like, no, this is an indie film. I can't do that. I can't just write what I want like a book. I gotta figure out what I can do and write that way. So that was fun.
Yeah, it was challenging but fun.
Cool. So we have our first audience question, which for the audience who's joining us, feel free to send in questions at any time, and I'll make sure they get to these guys. What gave you the idea for the story?
The idea. Well, I read C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy. That's kind of what inspired me to go into that genre. And if you've read those books, you know the main character's name is Ransom, and in this film, one of my main characters is Ransom. So that was just kind of a hint to myself to remind me like how I was inspired and things like that. So I really just I started with a theme of like people who live totally in their own little world and don't care or look around to the world around them, even in a selfish way and a detriment to not only others around them, but to themselves. So I kind of went with that theme and see how we could tell that with an otherworldly feel.
Cool. And can you guys dig in, like as writer, director, and actor too, can you guys kind of dig into what was kind of explain more of like the metaphor of, thinking that you're the only one is dangerous? Can you kind of explain more of what that means, of what you hope the audience takes away from it?
Ben, Daisy?
Yeah, so I think that even though we live socially in this world, a lot of times we act, at least on the inside, very alone. And instead of acting out our, expressing our emotions, expressing things to each other, we kind of live like we're in an isolated, situation. So that was kind of one of the concepts that we wanted to bring out. Is that what would that look like in a sci-fi world if we depicted what that is, what people are like on that level. So in order to just to kind of show I guess really the selfishness that we all experience when we push people away, when we close off these superficial boundaries that we think need to exist, and just going through the process of opening up the real world to people and what there can be, when we accept that there's more than just us.
Yeah.
Cool. Second audience question: what did the cups of blood represent?
That one was I can forget how we originated that idea. I can't really remember. I think it might have been Ben's idea, or maybe Natalie's idea. I don't remember. But the cups, what they represent is, you probably find out more in like episode 3, 4, 5, 6 as it goes on. But I'll spoil it. No, it's kind of like on the outside, it seems like the wardens are imprisoning her, and they're feeding off of her blood, right? But she is willingly being isolated, and she is willingly giving of herself to these beings and feeding them. So again, it's more of a. That's why the answer was to spill your blood, to stop that, to stop the feeding of the selfishness of only my dreams matter, type of world we live in. So it's kind of like a representation of you're hurting yourself by feeding these things that you think are there to protect you, but they're really just imprisoning you. And that's just the self-isolation life. Of self.
Yeah, so the spilling of the blood is kind of the denial of self, or the expulsion of yourself as your own God, in a sense.
Gotcha. Stacey, got a question for you. This was a pretty intense character, or you had some pretty intense scenes. What was it like playing Asana?
Oh, I loved it. I love acting without words. And so to have a role where I'm mostly by myself and I get to convey so much without speaking was really exciting to do. And then, she was very challenging. One of the things that Chris and I were talking about coming into it, it's like I think I'm the only person that exists. So when another human comes into my world, I mean, that's just a huge shock, and it's scary, like what's happening. But then, like, I'm not used to talking to somebody else. So even the way that I talk and the words that I use and just my manner of speech, is just different than it would be normally. So there was just a lot that went into kind of trying to, craft that character in those very unique circumstances. So it was really fun. I loved it.
Cool. Did you have any particularly difficult scenes?
Okay, so yes, I did. Okay, so getting tortured was hard. It was like 3 in the morning, and it was just a very draining scene. And yeah, it was fun. I love a good challenge like that. It was very draining, but I think I have to say my hardest scene was gutting that catfish because it was so gross. I am not that kind of girl. I'm just like, no, don't ask me to stick my hands and rip out something's guts. Like, oh goodness gracious. Yeah, I was scarred for life. Actually, it was pretty gross, but I did it.
Would you do it again if you had the chance?
Oh, if I had
to. Episode 2, you're gutting a rabbit.
We're just getting bigger and bigger.
And then a deer. Then you're gonna like the revenant it and just live inside of it for a night.
Yeah, you gotta live in it.
Oh my word. Okay, Asana quits.
Oh All right, we got another question here. How many drafts of the script did you do before the final draft?
Well, it's kind of funny. So it's it was an ongoing redraft process. So it's from the beginning to the end. We only kept one little scene.
Yeah.
And it was a very insignificant scene, but it was just the kernel idea that started it, and it just evolved into something else slowly and easily. And it seems like we had this thing where we kept, as we went through the process and as we went through like the drafts of the script, kept talking about how we don't have any trouble with plot twists. Like we want, I think we had to get rid of like 5 or 6.
I forgot about that. We were like, our whole movie
slowly
is just
and
plot
easily.
twist and then plot twist and
it seems like we
need to
had
like
this
make some
thing
movie
where
in there.
we kept.
Yeah, that was funny.
As we went through the
So what
process
was the
and as we
scene?
went through,
What was the
like,
original
the
scene
drafts
that
of the
stayed
script,
throughout the whole thing?
kept talking about how we don't have any trouble with it was your hands in the plot twists. Like we weren't getting. I think we had. I think we had to get
I
rid
think it
of
was
like
gardening because the original name of the film was The Garden, and it was you gardening, and then you were out isolated, and then like there was even a portal at some point that brought you into like modern day, and it went crazy. But that scene, you with the potatoes, was an original thought. Yeah, and cabin, and then the sign with here, everything was pretty early on too. But the potato kneeling was like it's the only one that stayed. Yeah. I mean, there was car chases. Like I told you car chases. Like I was serious. Like we had a car chase.
I think the first draft that I sent to Chris, he's like, okay, this is interesting, but we can't do any of this.
It's like, unless you got a budget to come in that I don't know about.
Where did you guys film this? Did you do more than one location, or
there was car
was
chases.
this just kind of all the same woods?
This was, let's see, the cliff was at Bald Knob near Smith Mountain Lake Lodge. Is that what it was called? And then the Cascades was the waterfall, which is over in Pembroke, I believe, and Virginia. And then the woods was all one area. It was Ben's grandparents? I always forget.
Yeah.
Parent. Yeah.
They're in Floyd, Virginia, or Willis. Yeah.
So there was an old 100-year-old cabin out there, and then just some woods, and we just shot it all in the general area.
Mm-hmm.
Ticks and all.
Yeah, I think it was the original homestead of the property that had, just never been torn down, and just worked out perfectly.
Anything between like setting up for the shoots and actually making it happen that was particularly difficult? Did you guys have any interesting days that didn't quite go?
Every day was interesting, but the one that Stacy mentioned, the torture scene, that one went till 4 a.m. and it was cold. And how I had it scheduled was an early morning the next morning. And after that, it wasn't supposed to go to 4 a.m., but that's how filmmaking is. And I remember Stacy like begging me, like, please let us sleep in. I don't know if I can come early. And I'm like, all right. So we had everyone sleep in, and we started late, which changed a bit here and there, but it was worth it because then I had a fresh casting crew that were happy and not like.
Well, the happy ones came back. The other ones didn't come back.
Oh yeah, some quit. They just didn't come back. But then the ones that I paid came back happy.
I know for a lot of filmmakers that's kind of a question too, as far as like how important is the journey and how important is the end product. Can all three of you speak to that as far as your perspectives on it?
The journey for me was amazing because I'd never done this before. So, like I said, I just write novels. So going through the process of helping Chris find like makeup and costume, and just looking at, talking to actors and actresses, going through the script writing process, the post-production process, all of that was so new and such, there's just so much creative juice that needs to be used throughout that whole process. that I just fell in love with it. I just loved it because it's not over at any of those points. You're adding so much to it, even in post production. And I just learned so much from Chris. And I just got to say, he's an incredible director. He's got an artistic eye, and he's just so good with the cast and the crew. So it made it a really enjoyable activities.
Fantastic. Got another question for you guys from the audience. Is this the first movie you have made?
Not mine. I've been doing stuff for a long time, probably 20 years now. But this film was my first full-length film I did in November of 2013, as you see here. And then I did a web series, comedy web series, which was fun. And then this was the first film I've done in this genre at this caliber. So there's a lot of firsts for sure, but not my first, which I think helped with the process.
Yeah. It wasn't my. I don't know. The questions for me too, but it wasn't my first film.
It was my first film that wasn't like with a homemade camera.
Homemade camera?
Homemade camera. That would be impressive. Yeah. So my friends and I we wrote a script for a Star Trek series called Star Trek: A Century Later.
Nice.
And instead of let's see, Mr. Bones, I was Mr. Skulls. So it was very creative. Yeah. So this is the first one that I've been in.
Gotcha. All right, we got an interesting question here. How do you guys define sci-fi?
We actually talked about that.
Yeah.
Trying to decide whether this was fantasy, sci-fi, allegory.
Sci-fi, fantasy, drama. Yeah. Well, to me, I lean toward more fantasy. Like my favorite series is Lord of the Rings. But I only call this sci-fi because it does take place on another planet, but there isn't really any tech or anything. The creatures are organic, even though it kind of looks like helmets, so they're probably more fantasy than sci-fi. I would say this is probably more fantasy than sci-fi, but I use the sci-fi genre just because people are comfortable with that, and it kind of has that feel, I think, but either one works.
Yeah, because there's a science to it that's not of this world, right?
Yeah.
The whole blood
The
thing.
chalices and the blood, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a fictional aspect to it that goes beyond reality in some way. So it's got to be somewhere in the sci-fi.
Gotcha. What did the potatoes represent?
Her meals.
Yeah, nothing too deep, unfortunately. That was one of the few things that was surface. It was her gardening, self-reliance, isolation, things like that. It's just more representing her everyday life. Something she does is garden. It takes time.
Gotcha.
So the original thought was while she was digging, she somehow uncovered this portal that she could view other worlds.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't know if that's what they were trying to ask or not, but so no one knew that she was looking at these other worlds while she was doing this, because you'd always look at her from behind. And so at the end, it was supposed to be this big reveal.
I forgot about that movie. That was a good movie. We should make that one.
Stacy, did you know this before? Is this news to you?
Let's just remake it.
They're interplanetary potatoes.
It's all new to me. I'm fascinated.
All right, Stacy, we got a question for you.
That movie.
Yeah, right.
What were your actual thoughts in the death of the man as you were saying lines?
Say it again. Sorry, I missed it.
I think this one's for Stacey. What were your actual thoughts in the death of the young man as you were saying lines?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Uh-oh. She could be losing signal.
You still have your Stacey?
That was 3 years ago, and I don't remember. I think really. Oh, am I gone? Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Oh, we're back. You're back.
She might be lagging though.
Can you hear?
Yeah,
me?
I think it's lagging. Yeah, you are still here, Stacey.
Am I back?
Always technical difficulties.
Yes.
Hello? Am I back?
Hey, Stacey, when you can hear me, if you can drop out and then come back into the call.
So I think I was really just trying to.
Okay, she left.
Okay. I was trying to figure out how he could lay still for so long and not move. He was really in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
I think what kind of proved that he was a great actor was when a fly landed on him and he didn't move at all.
Yeah. Everybody was asking, like, is that CGI? No, that was a real.
That was perfectly timed fly. Yep.
All right, another question. How did you go about forming your team for the movie?
Forming my team. Well, I have a circle of cast and crew in Houston where I lived most of my life, but I had just moved to Virginia, so I knew no one and no one knew me. So I went to Facebook and other sites that just kind of like found local actors and actresses and crew, and had a little bit of trouble finding good ones. And then I found Stacey, and she knew everyone. So she was my portal, if you will, to almost everyone in this film. So I mean, she is a big help in that aspect. She knows everyone, and so she's like, "Oh, here's some numbers, here's some emails," and I contacted them all, certain people, and things. So that was good. And then Danny, who plays Ransom, he had auditioned for a previous film of mine that didn't pan out. But I loved him so much, I always had him in the back of my mind. So when I was writing this, I knew, I was like, I wonder if I could get Danny.
Okay.
And I did. So that was great.
Okay.
Cool. How far away was Fred? Oh, yep. You're back, Stacey.
No, you're not.
Or not.
Well, you're back, but I think it's still lagging. All right. Well, how far away was your farthest team member, Chris? Were they mostly like around Virginia?
So my soundtrack composer that I worked really close with, he was awesome. He's in Germany, so we did FaceTime and email the whole thing, and that was a fun experience. And then the next closest, or farthest, I should say, was Danny. He was in Chicago, and everyone else was pretty much local within a few hours. She's a little late.
That's okay. All right. How long did this project take y'all to film? How many days?
Was it 5 days? 5 days. 5 like 10 to 15-hour days. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all like packed in because we only had our actors for a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah, Danny had to leave a day early. He wasn't there in the waterfall day, which is unfortunate. Right when we started getting to like be chums, he had to go.
Yeah. It was a whirlwind.
Wow. All right. Well, we are coming down to we're at the last 7 minutes here. So I want to ask you the final questions here. What impact do you hope this film has? Where do you want to see it go from here?
Well, I always personally appreciate and seek out good original content. And so I hope other people out there who are like me can find it and enjoy it and get some out of it, because there's so many, franchises and ideas that have been done 1,000 times, and we really tried to be original with this one, and I try to be different and unique. So I just hope it reaches in that audience that is searching for that.
What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah, I think that was well put. Yeah, a lot of the things that are out there right now are just kind of derivative of other things, and so just be able to get together with Chris and make something totally new and try to at least come up with that just complete creative spirit together on the product. And like Chris said at the beginning, I mean, we'd love for this to continue, to be a world that continues to be built on and expanded in some interesting ways.
Are there any current plans for continuing it, or is it kind of on hold?
The current plan is we're open to it, but it would take someone producing it. I don't have the time or money to continue it myself. I barely got this one out, so that's kind of what it was. One of its purposes too was to get an episode out. Hopefully, it inspires someone or some company to maybe make a series or try out a series, and then I'd be totally willing to go for it.
Yeah, and we've bounced some ideas off of each other on, future installments and what might happen next and where we might go in different directions with it. So we've got some ideas, nothing really written down though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Stacy, do we have you back? Maybe.
Oh, I thought she was there earlier.
Yeah, I guess we've lost Stacy. All right. Well, what projects are next for you guys? As far as is there anything you're currently involved in? Now's the time. If there's somewhere that the audience can follow you online, let us know where that is.
So I have made movies in the past, and I'm going to continue to make movies, and you'll find them all at staringatfire.com. And everything I make will be there. I have a YouTube channel. I put all this stuff too. My YouTube channel will be filled with other things as well, because I just like making videos. I play drums, so I'll be doing a lot of drum videos too. Natalie and I, my wife, are we are writing a feature that I hope we can make within the next year or so. Stacey's here.
Hear you. You hear us?
Maybe. Is she live though? It's not.
Still lagging. Yeah.
She's gonna come in later. Yeah, you can hear me. Great. But to staringatfire.com, you'll find everything you need as far as following me. And we're writing a comedy based around community theater original. Hopefully, we made this year sometime.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a website, and I've got a Facebook Benjamin Davis Sheeler author site, at cbenwright for Twitter, and probably a couple other things. But anyway, I'm kind of working on the Asana written short story that we're hoping to get out there as a kind of companion piece, and I'm also I'm working on some novels and short stories too. But lots of things.
So I'm assuming the audience can find out more about the novel. Well, that information will come out at Staring at Fire.
That's more Ben stuff, but I'll put it there.
Yeah,
sure, I'll put it there.
Okay, we'll just have Chris put it there.
I'll just put it there.
or the cbenwright
Okay.
at wordpress.com. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, one more audience question, and then I'll ask you a wrap-up question. What brought you to the concept of silent film-like caption interspersed with dialogue?
I knew that would come up at some point. Short answer is Ben likes to write, and he wrote a poem just for fun. And during editing, I thought it would be cool to have it at the end, and that wasn't cool. So then I said, "Oh, how about within the film?" And that was almost cool. And then I started breaking it up into over black in between sections, and then we kind of sectioned out. So this evolved into an idea during editing, and I thought it was unique and weird, and so I put it in there. And kind of I've heard someone say in our last Q&A that it seemed like it was a narrator throughout the film, which was kind of cool. It is kind of a narrator in a sense, and it's yeah, it just kind of helps the movie flow a bit more in a unique way.
Yeah, it was interesting because every time we came together and said, "Hey, what about this idea?" It
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like a breaking boundaries type thing, just like Asana was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't want to be confined in any way, and we just, mostly Chris just thought of like different kind of outlandish, different ways of doing things that to make it unique, I guess.
Nice. So where can people find Asana from here?
At this point, nowhere until we get it somewhere, which we're in talks of doing. So just stay tuned on all our social medias and storyfire.com, and hopefully soon, like within months maybe, depending on the virus, we can get it out so everyone can see it and share it around.
Cool. Well, and with that, we're going to wrap up our live interview for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us, and thank you, Chris, Ben, and Stacy, for being here. We will be back tomorrow with some more live streams. So see you then.
Thanks, guys.